This is Suit Up Sports.
Suit Up Sports.
Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with 10-year vet Frank Garcia. Frank, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, my friend. If Christmas came, or hopefully is coming a little bit early, at least for the excitement and the joy for us as Panther fans and even Steeler fans. You see, I'm dressed out in all my garb, and you got your.
We're representing both.
We're representing both today, but we found out a lot about a lot of different teams, not only in college but in the pros, and can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, and you were at the Panther game yesterday, and let's start there. You sent a video probably about 15, 20 minutes before the game even started. And, there's been a lot of talk this year about how when Panthers have played certain teams, the other teams have taken over, Buffalo, Dallas, whoever. And then last week, the last few games we've played teams that didn't really bring a contingency to the game, so the fans have been a little bit more engaged. Well, this being the biggest game that they've had in that stadium in a long time, and you sent a video 20 minutes before the game, and everybody that goes to Panther games knows that usually at kickoff there's still a lot of empty seats.
That's right.
You sent a video 15, 20 minutes before the game, and the atmosphere looked like it did back in the day when we were pretty consistently good.
If I could explain and describe the feeling. And this is why I love going to the games. It's one of the things as an ex-player I kind of miss is that, that energy, that feel, the sound, the smell, the buzz, all the things that, really you don't get at home. You might get it if you're watching with a bunch of guys or something like that occasionally, but nothing like going to the game. Yep. And I took my son. We had great seats. Thanks to Ron Herbert, Red Rocks.
Yep.
Shout out to you, bud.
Yep.
But we had a great time right there on the 40-yard line. And like you point out, there has been in times past, like even when the team has been good, this city just is a little slow to arrive.
Mm-hmm.
They get there, and when this city is on fire, it's on fire.
Yep. And
they root as hard as anybody that I've ever been to around the country. You have to get them engaged and interested. And yesterday they were. You talk about the NFC South and the fan bases, and it's interesting. New Orleans travels a little bit when they're good.
Mm.
Tampa travels a little bit when they believe and when they're good, but they don't travel as much as Atlanta, who's right down the road, and it's an easy trip. So we all understand why. But I think yesterday we saw the crowd probably 95 to 5% Panther fans.
Yep.
And everybody was into the game. And, from the beginning to the end, you could see the fan base starving for some success.
Yep.
Especially you could kind of feel a little bit of momentum, and we weren't sure where it's at. And we don't know what to think about Bryce. And we don't know about Dave Canales. We don't know about this team.
Yep.
Right? We just don't know still. Right. But yesterday we felt like we had a chance to win. In that first drive, the Panthers marched down. They end up having to kick a field goal, but it was like, okay, this team is for real, and they've come to play today. Why is that at the home versus on the way, on the road and away? There's some reasons for that potentially with inexperience and youth and those type of things. Obviously being able to operate. I'm not sure what the communication is or how they're communicating. But at home, this is just a different team, and they had every opportunity to win that game, lose that game, and then finally win that game. And there wasn't one person that left their seat. At halftime, everybody was back, their butts in seats by the time it was time to kick it off again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing. At halftime, everybody goes up in these nice little fancy places, and they sit there and they drink their wine and eat their cheese and, do all the things. But they were back in their seats cheering, and it was amazing atmosphere, and it's been a long, long time since this city has felt that vibe.
Yeah, and I tell you what, man, even watching the game here, and I probably had 8 or 9 guys over here watching the game, and you could tell, like, before the game, I think we all had like some butterflies because we're used to the Panthers.
We weren't sure. It's just the uncertainty.
Well, this team is just inconsistent. There's a reason why they win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. And that's what they've done all year. Win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, or at least the last, 8 or 9 games. So we don't necessarily trust them. And we knew it was a game that we could win. We also thought that we were going to get, Tampa's best shot after what happened last week with Todd Bowles going crazy. And we come down and score. We've scored on the first drive 10 times this year. So when we did that, we've seen that, right? We've also seen us score the first drive against New England and then give up 30-something unanswered. This team,
lack of creativity has been an issue with this offense for sure.
Yeah, and it's funny, when we talked last week, I've said all year that the jury's still out on Bryce and Canales and the team in general. And I said that this game was gonna show me a lot about Canales because he has seemed to learn from his mistakes. Now, he's also been inconsistent in that. So that's what I wanted to see this week. And you've heard me say this, watching almost every game with me this year, that when they come out and let Bryce throw the ball early, it seems as if Bryce gets into a rhythm that he carries throughout the game. When they don't, it seems is when we see him struggle a little bit. They come out, they throw the ball the first 3 times of the game, they go down, they score. Then Tampa gets the ball and they go down the field, nice drive, and Panthers nemesis Mike Evans, scores a touchdown, and you're going, oh man, here we go. And the team just kept fighting. And number one, Bryce had a hell of a game. He made some great throws. He didn't turn the ball over, which is, he took 2 sacks yesterday where they just got on him quick. Where one of them
he tripped
over Corbett, stepped on his ankle, but still both those times,
secured
the way they went down, you think, oh, please hold the ball. And he did. He, no interceptions. And that's really without a running game because, we didn't run the ball well yesterday. Dowdle had 9 rushes, 29 yards. Chuba had 6 for 27. Bryce had 4 for 20. And I'll be damned if those 20 yards rushing were not huge in the ballgame, especially the last touchdown we scored when he somehow magically escaped from getting sacked and found Sanders wide open in the end zone. But, and I was thinking about this after you sent that video. And then as the game moved on, was that's probably the first time that anyone on that team has seen what this crowd can be when we have a winning product, because they haven't been one. And so after the game, you heard a lot of the players and coaches talk about, man, we couldn't believe how loud the crowd was. And I thought that's probably the first time they've seen it, because that crowd ain't showing up when you've got 2 wins or 3 wins, or when you just look like you're totally lost on the football field. And yesterday, the bend don't break. Our secondary, minus a few plays here and there, played well. I mean, the fact that Baker Mayfield and that I think their receivers only had like 50-something yards, 60 yards receiving in the game. And so, they did run the ball, decent. But after those first 2 drives, the Panthers defense seemed to settle in. And then in the second half, Tampa goes on that 7.5-yard long drive. We had, they hit the field goal. They call a bull crap call on Robinson. And it was funny. The announcers yesterday, one thing I've noticed about announcers in football, they seem to be, they're not nearly as hesitant to call out bad calls as they used to. And we see Troy Aikman every Monday Night Football.
With the officiating?
Yeah, like if there's an awful call. Like we see Troy Aikman do it every Monday night. Schlereth yesterday, on that call said it was absolutely ridiculous.
What just shows you how the level of football, because it appeared, at least for a long time, watching the games on television with the announcers, it's almost like they had to kind of muzzle themselves from saying what they really wanted to. And it was almost like they were pro referee, agreeing with almost everything they said. Well, and now that you have the internet, now we have rewind, now we have replay, now we have challenges, now we have an official in the box. They have to be a little bit more critical of what's taking place because they lose credibility if they don't.
100%.
So before that, they just would go with what was said and nobody could challenge it, right? So, the referee was always right kind of mentality. And don't blame the refs because it's like the loser mentality. But now, if they don't at least, call out the things that are very, very iffy and a lot of times questionable, then they lose credibility. There was probably 3 or 4 plays yesterday that I could point out. And I'm sure Tampa has 1 or 2 that they could point out. Right. And a lot of times, those plays wash, they're going to get one, they're going to miss one, we're going to get one. But when they're egregious scoring plays, big first down throws, and the man is there fighting the defender before the ball has arrived, hasn't played the ball whatsoever. And I'm talking about in the end zone against Tet.
Yep.
He's holding his arms down.
2 arms around him.
And he's basically had him tackled before the ball was there. Tet did everything he could to try to get his hand out late and make that catch. That's a penalty.
100%.
10 times out of 10, that's a penalty. And what was so frustrating is just before that, there was a little tic-tac foul with what it seemed like the Bucs had gotten away with, where they went out there and one of our DBs kind of, maybe a tugged or grabbed or, had his hands near, but never really.
The J.C. Horn
call? The J.C. Horn, his hands were around, but they never pulled or grabbed, right? But yet but what's the difference between those two exact same things?
Yep.
Right? And when one team is getting that and the other team's not, it seems like there's an agenda. And I've said this for a million years in basketball, especially when you're playing superstars like LeBron, Michael Jordan, got those calls. The phantom calls that the referee already has his whistle in his mouth before or as he's going up to see if he makes or miss. If he missed, it's a foul. If he makes, it still might be a foul. But they're already anticipating the contact and the foul. I don't know what's taking place in the NFL with the lack of consistency week in and week out. And it's not just the Panthers.
No, man.
Last night there was a game that you could literally, if you wanted to investigate, go there and say, what is going on? Because you see the offensive lineman coming in. I'm talking about the Titans and the game that they were.
Well, you're talking about the Titans-Kansas City game.
Kansas City game where they score the touchdown. But in Vegas, the line
70% of the public had money on the over, and that touchdown would have put the game over.
Correct. Referee says, whistle, you didn't report. All the replays show the guy running in, holding his hand up. Referee acknowledges to another referee.
Yep.
Just he's reporting.
Gave him the sign. He reported.
And then all of a sudden,
it was Justin Simmons.
He doesn't report, and then you have to kick the field goal, and the line stays under, and Vegas wins. When those types of things start happening, my friend, that's when you're going to start seeing a lot of people questioning and, turning that away if those are going to be the case.
Well, and there was 2 calls in the Detroit Steeler game, which was a great game, but Detroit had 2 touchdowns called back on offensive PI, and you could argue that the first one on St. Brown, even though you could say it shouldn't have been called, you could argue that probably was a good call.
Are you talking about the picks?
The second one, Tesla was pushed into the defender, and it cost Detroit the game. But again, I don't know the spread implications there, but I do know that Detroit, had 2 touchdowns called back on maybe iffy. You're definitely iffy calls.
And here's what I'll say about that: the Steelers also had one called back, right? When the big 6'8", 330-pound tight end they're running crossing routes,
and the guy just runs
and the
into
DB just runs into him. And so at least there was some consistency on both sides, right? You might say, okay, one might have been a tic-tac, and that might have caught. I mean, those are for real things. But I have no problem, if a referee. It's like in balls and strikes, right? And you're a pitcher. Where's my strike zone? If you're a hitter, where's my strike zone?
Yep.
Is he calling him, this far outside? Is he calling him a little high? I want to know that strike zone. So when I'm looking, I have to be more aggressive. If that ball is going to be in that range, I have to let my bat go.
Yep.
I know as a pitcher, I can paint the outside and still get those calls. The problem is that when you paint it for one team and in the same exact location, it's a ball for another team, that's going to be a problem. And that's where most managers are going to run out of the dugout and they're going to start questioning balls and strikes.
Well, what was interesting, and we talked about this on Friday, Canales this week said that part of prepping for this game was that this officiating crew, I think, was number 1 in the NFL in calling PIs. So when they're not calling these PIs at the beginning of the game, and I mean, Tampa, there was a few where they were all over the Panther receivers. I mean, even on the Coker touchdown, the guy had Coker's arm. He was just able to get it away and get his hands up in time to catch the ball on that. It wasn't a touchdown, I don't think, but on that long pass.
The pass on 3rd and 8.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great catch, and they did call that one. But Canales talked about that earlier this week. So I almost wondered, did the officials come into this? Because they see it. Everybody sees everything nowadays. And I almost wonder if they came in and said, you know what? All right, we're going to let them play. We're going to let them play. And for the most part, they did. I mean, there was some calls they didn't call, but at least
except for the very first one where the Tampa keeps their their scoring drive alive,
right,
where we get the PI on J.C. Horn.
Yeah.
I mean, so it wasn't consistent.
But I think if I'm not mistaken, they only called 2 PIs all game. If I'm not mistaken, one was on Horn and the other one was on the Coker catch. But they did let them play. And like you said, if they're going to be consistent with it, let's go.
That's right.
I'm fine with it. And I'll tell you,
players would be too.
Right. And
players would be too. And
Schlereth made a good point. He said, look, if they're going to let the DBs
jam you up and
be all over you,
yep.
He goes,
use it.
And then he also said, then the receivers also have to say, all right, screw this. I'm going to fight through it. If they're going to do it, I'm going to fight harder and get through it.
That's right.
That's what Coker did.
Well, and DJ, to Schlereth's point, obviously a guy that's played there, a coach is going to tell another coach or another player, especially if you're a defensive coach, he's holding me. Well, then, damn it,
don't let him hold you.
Don't let him hold you.
Right.
Chop his hands. We teach you all sorts of techniques, how to get his hands off you.
Yep.
If he's holding you, it's because you're not working hard enough.
Yeah.
You're not getting through. Your technique is not good enough to win those battles. And conversely, when you're doing that, it's like, damn it, I got to go, right?
Yep.
I got to change my game and step it up. And, to the Panthers' credit, I think they adjusted both of them. It was a really good game. Other than those couple of calls, the officiating really didn't have a big effect. There was a couple of hesitations where you didn't know what they were doing. I think one was the block punt or the punt attempt where everybody in the world thought it was going to be at the stadium, thought it was going to be.
The Panthers got lucky on that one because
they thought it was going to be a roughing the kicker or a running into the kicker.
Yep.
It's still only been 5 yards.
Yep.
But with the way the game was being called early on, everybody thought, okay, they're going to get the ball. This is fixed. They're going to give them and they turned it into the holding, which kind of reversed back from, what we were talking about from that first call with J.C. Horn. So those are the give and takes. I didn't think the refereeing had anything to do with the outcome of the game.
No, I agree. I thought overall they were pretty consistent. Let's talk I want to talk about the defense too, but offensively with the Panthers, Bryce Young, and I sent you these stats last night. In his last 5 games, he's got 1,777 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 67%. And that's against the Rams, the Packers, the Bucks, and New Orleans, who now is a juggernaut all of a sudden.
It's funny how one guy that nobody knows can come in and turn an average team into a Super Bowl team.
It shows you a quarterback.
I.e. Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, I mean, a quarterback.
I'm not saying that's going to be Tom Brady by any stretch.
But Shuck has played great.
Yeah.
So, Bryce and the biggest, I think we all agree, this is the biggest game of his career so far, right? I mean,
it
has to be. And 21 for 32, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 scrambles that were, and it's funny, again, you were at the game, so you didn't get to see it, but Todd Bowles, before the game, the coach of the Tampa Bay Bucks, said that one of the things that worried them was that Bryce is his escapability. And he's basically was saying that, even though he's not known as a scrambler like a Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, one of those guys, that he's one of the best in the league at escaping pressure and making you pay for it. And
he does a very good job in the pocket of eluding the pass rush and with moving within the pocket and then finding some way to open up. At times, it's going to look like he's a wizard. At other times, he might get hit and fumble. So
that's the thing.
Those are the pros and cons that you deal with a smaller quarterback, Bryce Young. But yesterday, the improvisation of him at quarterback,
it was huge,
was what won this game.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's funny. Everyone talks about Bryce's size, and rightfully so. But I think in those instances, it probably helps them because maybe they can't find him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was just thinking the same thing. It's like visualizing like what this would look like. It's like a cat chasing a mouse through a haystack.
Yeah.
You can't see him. Where he's at? Where'd he go? And you're looking all over the place because he's hiding. And then all of a sudden, boom, he comes out right between somebody's legs. Right?
Yeah.
Whatever it might be, and then is out in space and does a good job. He had a couple of nice passes yesterday, a first down play where he kind of rolls out. They come and he just dumps it off into the side. And then the touchdown to Sanders was probably the biggest play of the game and probably one of the most, well-timed, a defining moment for him maybe.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, because I've been really critical on Bryce, and you know that.
Yep.
Yesterday, when I talk about putting a team on their shoulders and carrying them, He did that yesterday.
He did.
He did that yesterday. And when you're in the NFL, especially at that position, there's only one of 32. Most guys are going to be able to do that once in a while. The consistency that he's now showing with the numbers that you're showing and the way that he's playing and not turning the ball over, and the team is responding to him, it feels like they have a little bit more of momentum, and it's just taken a while.
Do you think that, because again,
I'm going to give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And when you're at the game, what I like about being at the game is I can see the whole field. I can see where the matchups are going to be. I can see the play kind of developing. As a center, I'm looking to see where the blitz is coming from. Are they faking? Are they coming? Are they going? And part of the cat and mouse is trying to figure that out while you're on the field in full speed. Are they faking? Are they baiting us?
Yeah.
Or are they really coming? And, once you've seen it a couple times, if you've been doing it a long time, your eyes kind of understand, okay, here they come. But there was a play with Tet's first touchdown where, okay, it's zero blitz. They're coming. It was 3rd and 10. They're about on the 30-yard line. This is where Bowles is known for dialing up pressure, trying to make a quarterback make a decision and get rid of it quick. Bryce yesterday probably threw 2 or 3 of the nicest touch passes in stride that you can throw in those situations. I mean, the receiver ran right underneath it.
Yeah.
Never broke stride, hit him right in the hands. Tet McMillan to the sideline, one-on-one. I'm yelling, oh, there goes Tet, one-on-one. And sure enough, boom, Bryce launches it. And Tet, to his credit, just runs right by. The DB was standing. He got toasted. The DB was, and that one might have been a matchup that they've seen on film where they're going to isolate. They know they're coming.
Yeah.
This is their blitzing situation. Here they come. Ding, ding, ding. Check. Make that call and go. And Bryce did that a couple times. Did the same thing to Coker. Down the sideline. He also did it on a 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 where they didn't connect.
Was that Legette's drop?
It was Legette. No, it wasn't his drop. It was just the one where he wasn't even close to them.
Where he had no field awareness.
I don't know what you do with Legette right now, because he is the most unaware player that I've seen in a long time that continues to get more and more opportunity with a really good, potentially young player behind him that is making plays.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Coker.
Yep.
Right. So, Legette, they need to understand what he is good at. And that's not a lot. I mean, he's very good at blocking. He's a big physical guy. When he catches the ball in stride, when he catches it, he turns into an explosive running back, almost like Metcalf. Metcalf catches the ball, DJ Metcalf for the Steelers now. When he catches the ball in stride and he's taking those big thunder, I mean, that's a big man coming at you very fast. You're a DB, and you're going to break a lot of tackles, and you're going to get out of the way a lot of those times.
Yeah.
The Panthers have got to find a way to get him more involved in those little crossing routes and things like that, instead of just running him off into space and running those outs, because he has no clue where he's at on the field. And I don't know if he would be capable, even if he did, of catching the ball and concentrating and getting his feet down.
Well, David Moore, who, if you remember, first game of the year, was having a good game and then dislocated his elbow and has been out. He's been a very consistent, fast receiver for a long time in this league. He's practiced the last 2 weeks, so sounds like next week he's going to be activated. And if he is, it'll be interesting if they give him some of those reps, because Jimmy Horn Jr., who we haven't seen since the fumble, against the Saints the first game, had a big reverse yesterday. He was also wide open, which would have been an easy touchdown, but Bryce had to scramble out and didn't see him. I hope they keep him in, still give him some plays, but I think Moore coming back should take some away from Legette. Now, like you said, there are some things that Legette does well, blocking, whatever, that they're going to keep in the game. And listen, you and I both agree, we want Legette to turn out.
The guy has all the physical skill sets and tools that you look at any opposing, wide receiver in this league. When you look at the guy, he's 6'3", he's 220 pounds, he's 4'4", and I mean, he's a big physical guy, not an ounce of fat on him.
Yeah.
And he runs hard.
Yep.
I mean, it's not, and that's the hard thing, I think, for a coach, is that you want to keep giving guys opportunities, especially when you see they have the talent, and you want to just squeeze it out of them in some way. And you're hoping that light's going to come on in one of these situations, right? But there's at some point, when you just keep squeezing and nothing's coming out, you got to move on to the next lemon.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do if Dave Moore comes back. And then they've also got another guy hopefully coming back here in the next 2 weeks. And if I'm the Panthers, maybe you bring him back next week, but you definitely hope he's back for Tampa, which is arguably maybe their best lineman, which is Hunt, who's been out with the bicep injury. He's practiced the last 2 weeks. He's a game changer. I mean, him and Lewis at guard are two of the best in the league.
Damian Lewis is a road grader, and I'm going to tell you what, with 77,
he played great yesterday.
He played really well. He's not as athletic as
Icky
is. Icky's very athletic for an offensive lineman. He's a left tackle athleticism type guy. But 77, if you're not big and athletic like that, you better be a big Hulk. He's the biggest guy on the field.
He's huge.
He looks like he's about 6'9".
Yeah.
And his arms are just monstrous and long. And when he grabs a hold of somebody, that first run with Chuba hit right behind, he ran right behind him. It was just a little dive, plunge where he didn't have to break stride and hit it for about 9 or 10. And, those are the things that, the Panthers are going to have to do, to continue to get success. And, we're going to look at this game and say, oh, they didn't run the ball very well. Look at their numbers. Look at what they did, right? Look at how they ran the ball. And you're right. But you have to also understand, the threat of running the ball when you get into formations like the Panthers were in and what happens to the box where you're going to get those one-on-one matchups if you have a quarterback that can make you pay.
Yeah.
What'll start happening? This next game, you're going to start seeing less smothered boxes because why? You saw Tet make a big touchdown catch. You saw Coker make a big touchdown or a big 40, 50-yard gain. You saw big plays. Explosive plays. And those will get you beat faster than anything else. And it'll scare the death out of a coordinator where they're going to say, I can't leave my guy one-on-one out there because this is what could potentially happen. So I have to soften that box. And now those big those smothered boxes that we're having a tough time running the ball with right now will open up. Other coordinators right now, from what I've seen in the last 2 or 3 games, are saying, you know what? Bryce can't beat us. Right? Bryce can't beat us. This offense with those receivers can't beat us. They're going to have a play here, a play there. They're going to be too sporadic. There's no consistency with what they're doing. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to take away the run because that's what can beat us, right? We have to take away the run. So they're going to play a lot of cover 3, single safeties, some blitzes, things like that, and lock guys down, jam them and lock them down. That's great until you miss.
Yeah.
Right. It's like pushing all in, and then the other guy having a hand and catching. You're like, damn, I lose them all. And those things will start happening the more plays they start making. And if Bryce continues to play the way he's playing.
Well, and it'll also be interesting to me to see if Canales, who I thought yesterday, I mean, there was a few play calls that I questioned, but we do that every game. But I thought Canales, had a good game plan, called a good game. I thought he made some good adjustments. But it'll also be interesting to see now that Bryce is seeming to find some consistency and the fact, most importantly, that he's taking care of the football. Will that trust have let Canales maybe open up things a little bit where we have seen some more downfield throws where we have, especially if the running game's not going? Because I said this to you.
Let me clarify for, with that type of thinking, right? Because I think a lot of people feel that way, right? We're just going to, dial some dice and throw them out there and bam, we're going to be this explosive offense and we're going to just open
I don't mean that. I just mean,
we're going to be able to, hold on. I mean, but we're going to be able to throw this thing everywhere. I think what a really good offense is able to do, DJ, it's they're able to do that when necessary, but they're also able to run the ball when necessary. There's no weaknesses to their game. And I think that's the thing I'm interested. Does Bryce have to beat you? No, because we have a running game that can. Can Bryce beat you? That's when you become an explosive and important player to your team.
Right.
Because when you have to step up, you do, and you do it consistently. That's what they were very opportunistic in those chances yesterday, and that's the reason why they beat the Bucs is because they made those plays in those moments, in those critical situational moments that I had killed them the week before, where they weren't prepared. It didn't look like they were ready. They were absolutely ready. So I don't know if they studied more. It's maybe because of the familiarity with the Bucs. I'm not sure, but it looked like they had prepared for that game and knew exactly they were a step ahead of the defense versus a step behind.
One of the other things, and I mentioned this to you last week when we were watching the game against the Saints, and I noticed it again yesterday. And Dowdle has been great for this team. He got over 1,000 yards yesterday, hit a nice $250,000 bonus. But to me, the last 2 games, his legs seem tired. I don't see the explosiveness that we saw earlier, where when he would hit a hole, he was going and he was dragging guys with him. Chuba right now, to me, has more of that because, you know, he hasn't had nearly as many carries. He had 3 or 4 games that he missed due to injury. I would like to see them slide the carries to Chuba more, especially next week, and let Dowdle have fresh legs going into that last game against Tampa, because that's not the only way we can get in the playoffs. Obviously, if we beat Seattle next week and Miami somehow miraculously beats Tampa Bay, which, you know, they got door stumped by Cincinnati yesterday, so I'm not counting on it. But I would love to see Chuba get the bulk of the carries next week, and hope that when we go to Tampa, the last game of the year, that we have a fresh Dowdle, because his legs to me look tired.
Well, let me maybe give you a different perspective, and I can understand why you would feel like they'd be tired. Defenses are going to do what, as I just pointed out, they're going to take away what you do well. When Dowdle is in the game and the box is loaded up, and they know that he is good at running these specific type of plays, right? The downhill, the double teams coming off the blocks and things like that, right? What are defenses going to do? They're going to have studied those things.
Yeah.
And they're going to start trying to take those away by slanting, by motioning, by stacking, whatever it is, and flying to those plays. So his impact is still there, because when he's in those plays, the defense is going to be in the box. So he's still having impact on the game. Chuba is not that type of runner.
Right.
Chuba is a stretch cut, downhill, fast, one cut, go, right? He's almost more of a third down back than what Dowdle is. Dowdle is your first and second down back because of his running style, his vision, his strength, his power to get through those holes, and his leg drive, right? And the plays that they run. Teams are going to adapt to those things, right? And so when Chuba comes in, if you look at the plays, they weren't the same type of plays Dowdle was running. They were more stretch plays, get out. Chuba has a different gear quicker. Dowdle still has the ability to do that, but it's going to be explosion, patience, and speed versus hitting 100 miles an hour. The reason why Chuba doesn't run those well is because the patience isn't there. So the timing that needs to take place is different between him and Dowdle.
Right.
So as an offensive lineman, I'm telling you this because you can feel it when you get good with somebody, right? When you get good with the back and you have good time and you have good relationship and you have good spacing, 1, 2, 3 twist, or 1, 2, 3 turn, depending on what the run is and what the reaction is. I can read what this running back is doing by where my guy is playing and how he's playing it. Oh, he must be inside, so I gotta turn, because that means he's going to cut outside. Emmitt Smith was a wizard at that. He had the patience of a saint that could go through there and the explosiveness to get through that hole. Now, he didn't have the top end speed once he did, but he was more like a Dowdle type of runner. Chuba is more like, a less talented Adrian Peterson, where he's going to come, he's going to hit those tosses. You're going to see that, and boom, he's going to come downhill, and he's going to be fast, and he's going to be quick, right? That's the type of runner he is. I don't want to compare him to Adrian Peterson, and not trying to compare Dowdle to Emmitt by any stretch, but that's the type of plays that they run well, right? And that's where it looks like maybe Dowdle is chugging a little bit more, but the impact is still there. That's why the passing game is opened up. Right.
Well, listen, I hope, and I think you're right. To me anyway, he doesn't seem to have the explosiveness that he had, 4 or 5 weeks ago. And but look, and we're going to need him. There's no question we're going to need him, especially these next 2 weeks.
When teams start spreading out and they start trying to take away Tet, watch Dowdle watch. Trust me. Watch how his legs start getting fresh.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball, because there was a few guys especially that I wanted to talk about. Number one was the second-round draft pick out of A&M, Nick Scorton, who's had a really good rookie year. Number 11. He had a game yesterday, man, and on 2 different occasions, he was rushing the passer and sniffed out the screen and dropped back. Right. And one time he made the tackle immediately, and the other time Baker didn't throw it because he saw Scorton drop back, and it turned into a defensive stop. But that kid's getting better every week. Nick Scott, who is much aligned and depending on the week, had 10 tackles yesterday, including a couple big ones. Roseboom, who, we our linebackers leave a lot to be desired, but had the huge sack on the blitz. That's 2 weeks in a row they've sent him. J.C. Horn had a corner blitz, which the Panthers rarely run, had a big, or at least got there, turned Baker around, and then Derek Brown cleaned it up. But the bend don't break defense that we have to play, I guess, with the players we have. And Mike Jackson, but I got to mention Mike Jackson because he gave up the early touchdown to Evans. But after that, man, he was a beast yesterday. And I loved his quote after the game where he said, look, man, football's like fighting. You got to be able to take a punch and then keep punching and keep fighting. And so, Mike Evans won the first punch, but I had to keep fighting, and I loved it. So, the defense
those are the type of guys you want that have short memories, that are going to play to the whistle and play 100 miles an hour, and they're competitive.
Yep.
Right. They're not going to allow one bad play to dictate that they're a bad player.
Right.
Some guys, that'll put you in a tank.
Yeah. They'll fold up.
They'll have, they won't have that short-term memory. You, as a DB, you develop that. I'm guessing as a golfer, you develop that, because that's the hardest thing as an NFL athlete, coming from where in college, you don't get beat.
Yeah.
Right. You dominate. You don't just win. You dominate guys. Right. If you're going to be a top guy, if you're going to be a starter in the NFL, you have dominated guys that you have played against that are in the lower level.
Yep.
Right. And when you get beat for that first time, it kind of like, oh damn, what it shakes you.
Yeah.
It's like a heavyweight fighter when he's never been knocked out and all of a sudden gets rocked and falls to the ground. You're like, now let's see what kind of a fighter this MFer is.
100%.
Right? Now let's see, because everybody has, and Mike Tyson, that infamous quote, everybody has a plan to get punched in the mouth.
That's right.
And when you do, let's see now. Let's see if you're a champion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
all heart.
And they were all heart, but they were talented as hell.
Yeah.
It was arguably one of the best fights I've ever seen, with just the tactics and the skill and the punches and the back and forth. It's like, and you know what? After the fight, it was like they took each other's energy and they knew that they had just fought a war.
Yeah.
And I think, when you're looking at athletes, we've lost a lot of that. And that's what this NIL stuff in college is doing. You're starting to lose some of those dogs. So those dogs still have an opportunity to make it, right? If they have a little bit of talent. And I think Mike Jackson's one of those dogs.
Well, and look, Dan Morgan said before the season that, and even when he took over as GM, that he wants dogs.
Yep.
They don't have to necessarily be the fastest or this, that. He wants dudes that he at least knows are going to give it 100%.
I want pit bulls.
And honestly, if you look at the Panthers defense, we can pick apart certain positions for sure because we're still ahead of schedule. There's definitely holes to fill on this team, and everybody knows it, right? But the guys out there, you do see the effort, and you do see that they're playing their asses off, and you do see the fight in them, even when they get beat and we get pissed off that our linebackers, didn't make this tackle or give up a pass, but they are fighting.
There's a guy named Paul Butcher. 100 years ago, I used to play with. And he had long hair, but he was like 5'10", 215 pounds. But this guy, I remember he was on kickoff return. He lined up next to me, and I'm 6'2", 285, 290 pounds at the time. And it's like you lining up next to me.
Yeah.
And he was a linebacker. But I'm going to tell you what, when the light came on, and this was back in the day when you would run wedges, and I'd hold you arm to arm, and we're coming at your ass, and you're coming at us 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I beat most guys to that punch.
Yeah.
I couldn't beat him to that punch because he was just a little freaking tenacious pit bull, right? But he didn't last long because his body broke down a lot sooner. But I'm going to tell you what, I mean, there's not many. Our guy that reminds me of that is our guy with the long hair. Roseboom. He has a great last name.
Yeah.
I want to like the guy.
Boom.
I want to love the guy. And when he made the sack, I'm like, okay, there you go, bud.
Yeah.
Right. He almost had an interception.
Yeah.
Right. He gives you everything he has, and he plays with his hair on fire, but he just doesn't have that little extra that elite linebackers have. And unfortunately, those guys will put you in position a lot of times, but other teams are going to take advantage. And when you saw Tampa driving, what were they doing? They were crossing routes right over the middle, Evans right over. They could have run those plays, 30, 40 times. And just had success all day.
Well, one of the things with Roseboom that we've seen is that when he and Trevin Wallace, started the first 6-7 games before they both were getting injured, Roseboom didn't like having the green dot. He didn't like making the calls. He just wanted to not have to think. So they gave the green dot to Wallace, and we did see the linebacker play, especially Roseboom, start playing a lot better. Wallace gets hurt, Roseboom has to get the dot back, and you do see a difference between that. There's no doubt. Now, I don't know. Wallace is fighting through an arm injury. I don't know if he's supposed to be back next week or not, but you do see a difference. And I think Cheerless has actually filled in nicely when he's come in for Wallace. But still, the linebacker spots are something that Dan's going to have to improve next year, but at least the guys are fighting. Two other guys
hold on. I never mentioned Scorton because he was the first guy that jumped off the screen for me when I was at the game. And I said, maybe I hadn't seen him a lot out there, or maybe I haven't recognized. Again, when you go in person, you see guys and you're watching, kind of with your own eyes, and it happens a little differently on TV, right? Because they're going to focus on where the ball is going, things like that. But you don't see where these guys come from and the speed and explosiveness that they have. There was a couple of plays where it cannon, and got to the ball carrier. Right, whether it was the quarterback, whether it was the ball carrier down the line, it reminded me of Jadeveon Clowney when he hit that guy from Michigan.
Quick,
and that just quickness and explosiveness that's there that you can't teach. I mean, it's just a different gear. He's got to, I think, gain some strength and some weight, but I'm telling you, I mean, I like that guy a lot. He could be a defensive player. He reminds me a lot of the guy that we left that went to Philly for a while. That you used to love, defensive end.
Reddick.
JJ Reddick. Is it
Hassan Reddick?
Hassan
who was
Reddick.
on Tampa yesterday.
It was Hassan Reddick.
Yeah.
A younger version of that, when he first came out, Reddick had a lot of that quickness,
a lot of effort.
A lot of quickness and speed, right? And he gained some weight and he became a really good player.
Oh, he's Pro Bowl.
At what he's done, but he's obviously a little older now, but Scorton could be a guy like that for sure.
He's definitely having a hell of a rookie year. And I'll tell you what, you look at this draft and just the rookie class, including a couple of free agents, two of them I want to talk about, but you look at Ted McMillan, first-round pick, Scorton, second-round pick, Etienne, who's had a solid year as a rookie, returning in some plays at running back, Lathan Ransom, who had the interception yesterday to steal the game, coming off last week against the Saints when he had the late hit on the quarterback that gave him 15 yards. So you talk about
that guy. You know what? I mean, I know that that's going to be people are going to look at him and say, "You idiot."
No, I mean,
those are those effort plays that sometimes happen.
No doubt.
And you have to be a little bit smarter, and that's where the experience will get you, knowing they're going to bait you into one of those things. But it was good. It was great to see.
Great redemption.
It was great to see a guy that we had just talked about who used to say with Michael Jackson, they said, "You know what? I'm going to have short memory with that. And it's not going to deter the way I play. I'm still going to play with my hair on fire." And good things are going to happen with those guys. If you get 11 guys like that on defense, I'm going to tell you what. You don't have to have the Julius Peppers and the Reggie Whites and those guys. It's nice. It's nice when they're one of those guys, right? When you have a Ray Lewis out there that has a Luke Kuechly that has everything plus that, or Thomas Davis has everything plus that, right? But not many people. But if you get 11 guys flying to the football like that, right, and pursuing and being fast and being physical and being fun and being in a bad mood, when they get the good things are going to happen to you a lot more than they're not.
No doubt, man. And I was so happy for that kid because I love him. I loved him when they drafted him at Ohio State. The kid is a hard hitter. He's a tough guy. And he is a guy that you could see eventually with the leadership role. I mean, I love him. So it was great to see him get that. And then the last rookie I want to talk about, who these guys don't get talked about that often. And normally it's when they miss. But Fitzgerald, our rookie kicker out of Florida State, has been freaking phenomenal. I think that was his 5th game-winning kick. Yeah, knock on wood. I think that was. I would never say that. I wouldn't say it during the game. I wouldn't say it during the game. But we've got a
John Casey never misses.
Yeah, well,
whoop, out of bounds.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that if we were watching the game, but still, to be All-American kicker last year at Florida State, didn't miss a kick. He's in a kick battle this preseason. Didn't even know if he'd beat.
I refuse to sit here and give breath
Well,
to a kicker.
I just know this.
He kicks the freaking ball.
Well,
good job, buddy.
He's made 5, I think, game-winning kicks this year.
He's doing his job.
He's 3 for 3 yesterday.
He's doing his job.
And so
I refuse to.
He's
give
part
credit.
of the over. All I'm saying is that Dan Morgan's rookie class this year.
I'm not giving him any credit for taking a kicker.
Whether you want to. Well, he signed him as an undrafted free agent.
I don't care.
But whether you want to take him out or not,
congratulations.
Dan Morgan has put together what looks to be a hell of a rookie class this year. And I didn't even mention Jimmy Horn Jr., who's shown some potential. So moving on, like I said a little while ago, the Panthers play Seattle at home here in Charlotte again this weekend.
You're starting to kind of see throughout the league, the teams.
They're kind of separating themselves.
Yeah, they're starting to separate themselves. And who's going to be the team? Like Green Bay right now, it's funny, everything kind of cyclical, right? If you're as good as your last 2 games, and if you win 2 in a row, everybody thinks, oh hell, they're coming. They found it.
Yeah.
If you lose 2 in a row, what does everybody think? Oh damn,
they're done.
They're done.
Fire the coach.
Yeah, we need to fire the coach.
Need a new quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look at your Steelers. 4 weeks ago, the crowd was yelling to fire Tomlin. And they're I
was one of them.
Yeah, and their defense looked horrendous at times. And now, even without J.J. Watt playing,
they are playing better.
They're playing better. So you're right. They were talking about that this morning.
You know why they're playing better?
Because they rallied around their coach, in my opinion.
They've rallied around their coach, and they don't have a guy out there doing his own thing, right? And that's a huge difference. That's a huge difference, because when everybody has to be held accountable to the same standard, right? And everybody has to be in their position, you become a better defense.
Yeah.
When one guy takes himself out of the equation and always just wants to rush the passer, what happens? You have holes. Other people have to overcompensate for those holes, knowing that he has the potential to be, a MVP type of player.
Yep.
Right. But it puts more pressure on guys that aren't capable of doing more than what they're capable of doing.
Yep.
There's other guys that can fill those voids. Luke Kuechly's, Thomas Davis. Hey, Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp went and did his thing.
Yeah.
Right. He lined up in a 4-eye sometimes when he's supposed to be over here on the inside, and he would get there.
Yeah.
Right. But he would do his own things. Who could cover for Lynch and Brooks.
Right.
Right. So and Barber, when you have those types of players, you can allow all of those guys to be who they are as stars, because you're going to have other players to overcompensate. When you have, guys that are just struggling to do their best at their job, when you are asking them to do a little bit more, you're going to have holes.
Well, and I want to just finish up on the Panthers, but the Steeler game yesterday, to your point also, is that Sawyer, the rookie defensive end out of Ohio State, took J.J. Watt's spot yesterday, his first ever start. And again, we're talking about dogs and dudes that play hard and play with their hair on fire. And he's the one that got the number 33
in the national championship.
But he played a great game for Pittsburgh. And so when you're bringing in a guy like that plays with his hair on fire, that buys in,
it's going to be easily replace the other guy when he's making
no doubt. And he played great yesterday. So
and the other thing too, we have to give credit to that team. I've never been a big Aaron Rodgers fan. Right. But he's had multiple opportunities to throw Tomlin under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple, where, the way that he's done things. He's a 3-time MVP.
Yeah.
Right. He gets it. He still has an incredible arm.
He does.
It feels like there is more synergy with him and Tomlin, and that Tomlin is his guy. Right. And he's going to defend Tomlin because the team is starting to respond to him as this is his team. They've scored more points this year than they have in the last 5 years.
Yesterday, their offensive stats were the best offensive stats.
Since Ben Roethlisberger.
No, it was even, I think I saw stats today that said they haven't done what they did yesterday since 1982.
Wow.
So, you're right. They're starting to get momentum. And
Aaron Rodgers they're starting to find their niche.
Well,
Metcalf is starting to make plays. They're starting to get.
To me, the biggest thing that I've noticed, and I watch every Steeler game normally just because if they lose, I love to give you crap about it. But I watch every game, and the one thing that I think has really made the change offensively is when they brought in a guy like Thielen, a guy like Scotty Miller, who had 2 big throws. Aaron Rodgers was complaining during the year that guys need to watch more film. And if they were where they need to be, we'd be better off.
Yep.
Now he's got veterans in there who are where he needs them to be. So he knows where and he can trust them.
That's right.
And he knows where they are.
That's right.
And now you see Aaron Rodgers looking like Aaron Rodgers.
The ball is going to be thrown on time.
Yep.
He can trust his decisions.
Yep.
He can trust his receivers to get there. And I don't know if you saw the one play that there was a couple of them where Warren, busted, but the one to the right side where they have their heavy package in kind of, and that big ass tight end is just barreling down and goes and destroys a linebacker or safety. But the guy that's supposed to make that or could easily make that play is the corner that Thielen was blocking.
Mm-hmm.
Thielen took an outside release. The guy hung inside. Warren cuts up, and most guys would stop. Thielen was cerebral enough or smart enough to go in front and shield.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't block him because it would have been a block in the back.
Right.
But he went in front like he was playing basketball, and the guy couldn't get to the ball because now he had to go through Thielen.
Yeah.
And it sprung, and Rodgers saw the whole thing unfold as he's going.
Yep.
And he's trying to sprint down with his old ass to catch Warren. And on the way, he's ragging Thielen because he saw Thielen make that touchdown block.
Yeah, I think him now having
just little things like that.
It is, and now he knows that the guys are going to be where they're supposed to be, and it's letting him have his full toolbox. And I think that's what you're seeing with Pittsburgh. And then on defense, something's definitely triggered it, and they seem to be for real right now.
They're flying around, playing with their hair on fire for sure.
Back to the Panthers. They're home this weekend against Seattle.
Ooh.
Seattle just came out as a 7.5-point favorite at home, which is, if you're a Panther fan, that's great because we don't ever want to be favored in any game because we're 0-12 the last 12 times.
It's a 14?
Maybe.
You're telling me?
Well, and look, if you want to pie in the sky, because look, everybody's going to agree Seattle's one of the top 5 teams of football, and no question. They just had a huge win in overtime over the Rams, which is one of the best games I've seen in a long time. They've got a damn good defense. Sam Darnold will throw you the ball. He will throw some interceptions, but he's also having a hell of a year. Najigba has been one of the best receivers in football. They don't run the ball that well.
Their defense isn't given nearly enough credit as for what, especially when they play at home. I know, having played in Seattle in college and having played at that field, several times, that's one of the loudest venues that you're ever going to play at. So their defense is going to play a little bit more with their hair on fire. I think they just had some injuries last week against the Rams. It'll be interesting to see, if those guys are back or not. But these guys up front are very similar to the Rams and how they get after guys. And the Panthers handled the Rams front.
Yep.
So I would expect more of the same, with the way the Panthers played the Rams. Now the Rams, we were very opportunistic, if you remember, against the Rams.
Pick 6, another interception in the red zone.
Right. I mean, the Rams gave up the ball a couple of times, especially when it got to the red zone. If that happens, then obviously we have
Sam
Darnold chance.
You would think Sam Darnold is more apt to do that than Matt Stafford.
Matt Stafford,
yeah.
Right. Who's,
so might be the MVP this year.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good game. Used to say about Seattle that they were awful when they had to travel to the West Coast and their record was awful. However, under their new coach McDonald, I think this year they're undefeated on doing that. So whatever formula he's
they might
concocted,
leave a day earlier,
and they've also had more time off. They played Thursday night, so we'll see what happens with that. The good news, if you're a Panther fan, if we win that game and Tampa loses to the Dolphins, we're in. If we lose that game, regardless of what Tampa does, if we beat Tampa the last game, we're in. So we still control our own destiny.
Big win. This was a big win.
It was a huge win. So
to give them a leg up, which kind of scares me a little bit.
Well, listen, they win, lose, I think the last 8 games. So the good news is if next week's the loss, it doesn't ruin our playoff chances. And then the next week should be a win if we follow that.
Let's hope.
Just means the first round of the playoffs are screwed.
Except we have to go to Tampa where we do not play as well for whatever reason on the road as we do.
And their fans are going to be wild and crazy like ours were yesterday. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's jump to the college football playoffs real quick because we only got about 10 minutes. We saw some good games. We saw some bad games. We saw some crazy plays. But let's start with Bama, Oklahoma. Bama with a huge comeback. I think they were down 17-0 at one point. They have a pick 6. They have a punter drop the ball from Oklahoma. Somehow he just dropped it. They win 34-24, which was an entertaining game. But it was almost the reverse of the game where Oklahoma beat Alabama the first time, where they had a pick 6 and they had a block kick and Simpson threw 3 picks. Alabama gets the big win there, and now Alabama for that gets to go play Indiana on New Year's Day in the Rose Bowl. Right now, Indiana is a 6.5-point favorite. Obviously, we're going to talk about these games in depth as we get closer to them.
I have a lot to say about what's the layoff in Indiana.
It's a long layoff,
and the way that you lose your edge sometimes and get complacent, especially when you've been crowned. It'll be interesting. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at all if Alabama won that game.
Me either. And you know what? Indiana is a 6.5-point favorite. So I think there's a lot of people out there probably at this point in time that wouldn't be surprised. Then we saw Miami, Texas A&M, which if you like to see scoring, you hated this game because Miami ends up winning at 10-3.
It was the most boring game that we watched all weekend.
No doubt.
No kickers. We're not giving them any credit.
God, they couldn't make a kick.
I mean, it was windy as crap.
It was windy.
It was like Chicago-style wind. You start the ball on the left goalpost, it would sway to the right, and the guy would hit it really well. It's just, I mean, sometimes it goes that way.
Yep, but you know, both defenses played very well. Miami's defense played incredible. Texas A&M's offense has been explosive all year. Miami's defense shut them down. So
their front four is as good as anybody's in the country.
doubt. And Miami now goes to play Ohio State on Wednesday, December 31st, New Year's Eve.
That's gonna be a slugfest.
AT&T Stadium. Ohio State opens up as a 9.5-point favorite. We will see again having that long layoff. If you remember last year when Ohio State won the national championship, they were one of the teams that didn't get that layoff. They had to keep play, and they never really lost an edge.
You're right, and I think that is something that we really have to pay attention to as we start getting into those games. As we go on later in the week, I'm sure we'll talk about it on Friday.
Yep.
But those types of layoffs. When you're not sharpening, and you're especially in college, and you have a lot of other things going on, and you got New Year's taking place, and you have all these parties, and you have all the people patting you on the back telling you Ohio State may be the different because they just lost.
Right.
And
they're going to be on a mission.
And they're going to be on a mission to prove.
Yeah.
Indiana has a little bit different feel about how that game, and some people handle being the big dog on top of the mountain. Other people don't very well.
Well, I will say this, man. Coach Cinetti, I know you love him and I love him. And if there's a coach that I'm going to think that's not going to let his guys get complacent and sit there and pat themselves on the back too long, it's him. And so we'll see what happens in that game. Then we had Ole Miss 41-10 over Tulane. Their first matchup of the year was 45-10, so not much different.
Ole Miss took their foot off the gas in the third quarter. They scored 60.
And their running back was in and out with injuries. Or quarterback.
It was a preseason game with varsity versus JV.
Well, now Ole Miss gets to go play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans on New Year's Day. Ole Miss, if you remember, was leading Georgia in the fourth quarter in Athens. Georgia came back and beat them. So that should be a good football game. And then Oregon at night, 51-34. JMU's offense had great numbers, but took a 99-yard drive as time was running out to cover the spread, which I know you and I both were not very happy about. But now Oregon, and this game, it might be the one I'm most excited to see. Oregon gets Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl in Miami. Right now, Oregon's opened up as a 1.5-point favorite. I love Texas Tech's coach as well. I think he's great. You and I talked a little bit about this weekend that to me, Oregon is a very dangerous team. I think their path to continue to move on. Nothing against Texas Tech, because I think Texas Tech could absolutely win this game. But if you're Oregon, you'd much rather play a Texas Tech than you would Ohio State or Indiana. Of course, yes. So I think Oregon, if you're an Oregon fan, if they can.
I mean, it's a great matchup.
And you also got a great.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd already played Indiana at Oregon earlier in the season. It ended up being a 10-point game. We've already talked a little bit about that in previous podcasts, but that was a slugfest.
Yeah.
It was a 21-21 game, very similar to Ohio State playing them. And the ball bounced Indiana's way again, just very similar like it did Ohio State.
Yep.
Those were two similar games, two similar teams.
Yep.
And I think Oregon, as I said all year, is one of those top 4 or 5 teams that should be more considered. But we've all seen last year, and what happens with Oregon is when they start playing the big boys in the SEC, the big guys up front just lean on those little guys.
Their defense doesn't tend to be able to rise to the occasion.
You don't think Oregon's hearing those same things?
Oh, no doubt.
Phil Knight hears all of the same things.
But everybody who is sitting there saying that they don't think their defense is good enough to win the whole thing this year are the same ones now saying, and they gave up 34 points to JMU, and JMU had 330 yards this and 200 yards this.
If you watch the game, I mean, they had their second and third string guys in at that moment.
Yeah.
The game was over, and it was almost more of conserve, stay injury free. If they score a couple points, we're not trying to embarrass anybody. There's no style for winning these games. We got 51 to 19 or whatever the score was, and then the last couple touchdowns late, which killed you and I. But it's still, I think when you look at the way that game was played, Oregon could have scored 75 points. And that game could have been 75-10.
Well, Texas Tech has a damn good defense, but they haven't played an offense like Oregon yet. The best team that Texas Tech's played all year was BYU twice. And
BYU doesn't have nearly the speed.
BYU, if you talk about BYU, their offense is like, it isn't like this.
Like old Wisconsin.
Yeah, Oregon,
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Oregon's a track meet.
That's
so
right.
I am excited to see that game. Like I said, I love what Texas Tech's about. I love their head coach. So
they can hang in that track meet though.
They've got speed.
Texas
no
Tech,
doubt.
Texas Tech has frisbee catching dogs
No
everywhere.
question. And they got a quarterback who's tough and can make plays. So, these games on New Year's Eve, there's one, like I said, Miami, Ohio State. And then on New Year's Day, we've got 3 games, man. So we got to make sure that we have our spare livers ready and take a break. And you'll be in California.
I'll be in California.
For that. So
I might even go to the Rose Bowl. I might go.
Oh, that's right. You'll be there.
I'll be there. I'll be in Pasadena.
Well, that'd be a hell of a game to go see, man, to see Alabama and Indiana. Sure, that'd be a hell of a game. But obviously, we'll talk more about those games as we get closer. Again, Friday, Panthers, Seattle. We'll get you ready for that. It'll be interesting to see if the Panthers do have a letdown, knowing that the game really doesn't mean anything, although if they were to plot a victory. But we want to see consistency. Win or lose, I just want to see a good performance, stay healthy, and get ready to go to Tampa and try to squash them again and get
Who does Tampa have?
They're playing Miami.
Miami's
starting rookie quarterback Quinn Ewers from Texas and got stomped. Joe Burrow yesterday, 4 touchdowns, 300 yards.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't bet
after
on
a
it.
performance from the week before
where he did nothing against the Ravens. So Miami,
the Ravens crapped the bed yesterday too.
They did, and Lamar's hurt again, which has been a theme all year long. So that helped Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh does play the Ravens this weekend, which is going to be a huge game because if the Ravens were to somehow beat them, that sets up the last game if Pittsburgh were to lose or whatever. There's a lot of scenarios.
Pittsburgh wins this week. They're in.
Yep. And I was reading all the different scenarios tonight. By the way, you've got a Monday Night Football game that has a lot of playoff implications with the 49ers and the Colts. So we're in that time of year now, man, where there's
every game matters.
Yeah, there's
playoffs have begun 2 weeks early.
Yeah, the Panthers playoffs started last week in New Orleans, and they got a reprieve. Thank God. So now it's must win time for a lot of these teams in the NFL. We'll be back Friday. Have a great week. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah.
Thanks, Big D.
And thank you, Big D. I know Dylan's busting. He's burning the candles at both ends of the night now.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, and we'll see you Friday.